Yo, hi guys, it's Beast, back with some more beastly content. Today we are going to be doing a guide over the 3 best locations to farm for tons of standard parts in the Manabus version of Once Human. So first things first, I'm going to cover the items I personally use for farming. Tier 3 backpack expansion with a Tier 3 electronic parts grabber is an absolute must for the maximum amount of electronic parts. I know we're after standard parts here, but we also all want a part. So, the next thing is our food items. So, I use a couple different buffs. I use a Stardust energy drink. I use a mushroom soup, a Stardust mushroom soup, and I use a Stardust ratatouille, pretty sure it's ratatouille, I only know that because of the movie. Regardless, these 2 items increase your movement speed and your stamina, like duration of like how long it's gonna last, so we're able to run faster and longer. So then we're using Utter Delight, Spring Legs, and Featherweight. So Featherweight boosts your carry weight, Spring Legs makes your jump height just a little bit longer, and I think it might even be a little bit of a movement boost, and Utter Delight makes your Whims last longer. So one final thing is you might want to grab some adrenaline shots. Don't really need them, but hey, stupid deaths do happen, and adrenaline shots are handy. Let's get on into the locations now. Alrighty, so the first location we're actually going to start with is the Wild Dog Isle. So this here is just a quick and dirty standard parts farm. I have covered this in a previous video. We are going to cover the entire thing though. Once you do actually load up to the teleport tower, you're just going to go ahead and hop inside your vehicle and make yourself up this little road here. So you see that little building and structures there with like the boat docks and everything? Yeah, there is absolutely 0 loot there, so don't even bother going there. So here we are, the main loot area. The first thing we're going to do actually is go ahead and just item up real quickly. Now another thing I wanted to mention real quickly while we were iteming up is just that the Spectral Cloak is a very handy item to use during loot runs, being that it can make you invisible and still able to loot for like 2 minutes. So just something to note on. Also has 10 uses. Spectral Cloak definitely makes looting handy. These are all low level areas, so I didn't really seem to be bothered by that. First things first, we're going to hit this little tent area. We're going to run through and loot every single one of the tents. Once you're through, there's this little platform here. There is a storage crate here. Just wanted to make sure you knew that, so you get the maximum number of electronic parts out of this run. So as you can see here, after that, if you run out into this open area, there's absolutely no loot actually over here. The next spot you're going to run to, and there's loot like just outside of these tents here of this area. It's actually this area right here. There's a couple different buildings in here that are filled with loot containers to actually be looting. So there's this first building here, and then up here we have this second building. I think it's mainly just a fridge and a couple little scrap things. Another thing I wanted to mention about the standard parts thing is it's like the scrap course stock, the barrel, the things like that, the weapon scraps basically. All those are your standard parts. You get those items and you pick those up. Those are standard parts right there. So yeah, just so you know. Next, this little middle building here, there are some enemies to fight off. There's a storage crate here, and then there is the weapon crate right in here. Aside from that, you're going to make yourself all the way up the stairs now. And once you are up these stairs, there are 3, I do believe it is, more storage crates to loot here. So we're going to go ahead and get those looted right now. Then you make yourselves onto the roof, and I think this is randomized, but there was a football in the middle for me. Next, we're going to jump down from this roof down to those 2 tents here. Now, if you look at these 2 tents, a little bit across from them, there's actually 2 more tents even further back. Those 2 tents have absolutely no loot in them, but these 2 tents right here have a ton of loot, so we're going to go ahead and run through here and just loot both of these tents real quickly. I always loot this area. This is one of my favorite standard parts farms, but it's not really the best standard parts farm in Manabus. There's actually another location that is extremely quick to run, though I do believe all of the locations mentioned in this video are actually under 10-minute runs. So yeah, just something to note. Not the best location, but this location is pretty good. And next, we're going to head all the way to the back side now. This is where those enemies were in that middle building, and we're going to head all the way out through the back exit after we loot this building right here, of course. Like I said, you want to loot all the buildings in this area here. All the buildings do have loot right here. Loot this storage crate, and then we're going to head out that back exit, and we're going to speed ourselves on to the next area because we are almost done with this entire loot run here, with this entire point of interest actually. It's a pretty short one once you know where the loot's at. Like I said, these back tents here, there's absolutely no loot. Now that platform right there might be 1 storage crate on it. Might be. Honestly, not even worth it. So Go out the back exit right here, go up this side here, and then you can make yourselves up that ramp there. We ran out of fuel here, so I kind of just cut to the ramp. Normally you drive your vehicle all the way up to this ramp. To the right of you, right here, is your first storage crate. From here, I usually will just make like a beeline straight to the back. I do believe there's one storage crate above this little walkway. Well, I thought there was, but there's not. So we're actually going to make it to like this back area here. There's just a little bit more loot going on back here. We're gonna head into here, go up these little stairs here, and in the middle point of the satellite there's a loot crate, and then this building right here also has loot. There's also one more building around here that has loot. I will say I found a lot of scraps for weapons here. There's a little bit of loot over here by this spool that's all the way like up against the side wall here as you make your way in here. And then right here normally there's a picture like puzzle where you just gotta line up the picture where it like matches perfectly and the door will appear and you'll be able to actually go in here. There's just a little bit of extra loot in here and another storage container as you can see there, but that for the most part is Wild Dog Isles. Now we just have one thing. I want to show you the exact number of standard parts we got from the Wild Dog Isles before I show you the better farm location, and then I'm going to tell you just a couple more after that. So 138 from Disassembly, and then ended up being a total of 140 standard parts and 56 electronic parts from that location. We do have the tier 3 electronic scrabber, so do keep that in mind. But as you can see, not a bad little area to run for a quick 100 standard parts. Super duper easy. We do have a 2-perk disassembly bench, and do also keep that in mind. Alrighty, so on to the next location, High Banks. This is my favorite location for standard parts. I recently discovered this was a god location for standard parts as of checking it out, and oh boy am I glad I did. So from the teleport tower, just hop in your vehicle, make yourselves a sharp turn here, and then make yourselves all the way to High Banks. It's just a straight shot drive from the teleport tower. This spot's amazing, guys. So first things first, hit this little cafe here. There's a little bit of loot in here, definitely worth picking up. Go into the kitchen, go check it out as well. There's also loot in there. Once again, spectral cloak, you could be running through here, hiding from the enemies, being invisible, running through, maybe just a little bit quicker, not having to do combat. However, it's a low level area, and I've really wanted to show off this ACS 12 corrosion build because I'm not actually quite sure this is ever actually going to make light of day on a build guide, just due to how much building and looting and all of the other side of the game we've been covering lately. So yeah, who knows when we'll actually get back to the build guides, but for now, this building here also has loot. So as you can see here, we ran the cafe and then we went to the 2 houses beside and we just instantly collected the loot from them. The next spot we're actually going to go to is going to be the tents directly in front of this little cafe area here. Another thing I actually wanted to cover just before that though is all these like houses back here, especially this one up on the hill and the one beside it to the right. None of these houses are actually lootable or have any loot, so don't even bother with those houses. But like I said, we're going to run through this tent area. We're going to collect all of the loot on the tables and everywhere in this little tented area, and then we're going to go through the rest of this. So once again, this is not the main point of this farm area. This farm area has one specific area that if you just looted it and left this point of interest, you'd probably come out with a good 150 standard parts. I'm telling you, it is a godsend loot area. The next spot we're doing is actually the building directly in front of the tented in area. That it has 2 little elevators inside of it. There is a decent amount of loot in here. There's ammo packs, milk frothers, acid smartphones, things like that. 2 storage containers, I think it is, all right here. I think as for the pooled in area behind the building, I think I found like 1 piece of loot. I do believe random loot does spawn back here. We only found 1 little thing right here. But maybe it's randomized and maybe it can be more loot. Who really knows? Maybe it can even spawn on these chairs, but I didn't find anything. So next, back out the front door and into the market of malls. So as you can see here, there's just a building and it's nothing but mall shops. Every single door you go in is filled with loot. This is your standard parts farm. This is the one that you're gonna just come back to every single time. I like Wild Dog Isles because the teleport tower is very, very close to it, but honestly, I do Wild Dog Isles and High Banks for my standard parts when I do be needing the standard parts. And just these 2 alone is an easy 300 to 400 standard parts. I am going to be covering 1 more location after High Banks. Well, technically, I'm just going to cover like the only other locations I recommend farming for standard parts in the Man Abyss version of Once Human. But Yeah, high banks, everyone. If you see this building and you go, that has to have loot, don't even bother. There's absolutely no loot in this building. Looks cool, no loot, just so you know. The last place to actually go to get some loot is this big old looking house here. You actually don't think you can actually go into this building. If you can, I missed it. I think you can on the right wing, but the left wing isn't accessible. Regardless, there's a rift anchor back here, so we are going to go ahead and activate that because we actually never have. Usually I don't, worry about that. I've actually looted the room we're about to go loot before, but I've never activated this rift anchor before on this playthrough. Just thought that was kind of crazy. So the other thing is these benches, they can have random loot that spawns on them as well. As you can see, there was just a little bit back there I think we missed. All in this diner little area here, there's tons of loot. There's employee badges, there's fabric, there's all sorts of things going on in here. Just a ton of loot. You need to be going through this kitchen here, guys. You're definitely going to find yourself some loot here. So, from this back door of the kitchen here, you can loot this dumpster, and I actually recommend taking a left. It'll take you to this area here. Now, we entered in from the other side of the area, but this area here is accessible from going from the left of that kitchen there. As you can see here, this is what it looks like from the other side. Go ahead and collect that last dumpster, and that's pretty much most of High Banks. One other thing I wanted to mention is there's just a little bit more loot on this tinted in area here just past that first building. The first house, there is actually just a tiniest bit more loot here. One more storage container. I did find a paper doll here, so I did figure I'd go ahead and mention this. This is every single bit of loot there is in High Banks, and this is how you get your standard parts, guys. Now, run through this little pulled in area here. We're passing that parking garage we were by earlier. Just make yourself up this road here and those stairs. Loot this house. This house is the final loot house of the area, guys. As you can see here, it is definitely not something you want to miss. There is a good amount of stuff in here. As you can see, we're finding standard barrels, glue, shirts, employee badges, milk frothers, everything in this house here, guys. This is definitely one of my favorite standard parts farms. Honestly, I would almost say you can even just do High Banks by itself and be good on standard parts. I'm telling you, we got 240 standard parts from this run right here. I actually don't remember if I had an area that I'm pretty sure I got 300 before in one of the areas in my opener, but regardless, very, very good. And as you can see, there's another chest up here. Got 2 different blackfell extraction permits out of that chest. That's a pretty lucky, guys, overall. There we go. Spider doing its weirdness. I still don't really know what's going on with that or why that happens. Regardless, that is pretty much High Bank. Alrighty, and let's go ahead and check on the disassembly bench. Boom! How much did we get? 204 there. 38 electronic parts. And I said 204, but it shows 204 on the disassembly, and then it shows on the output as 201, and then we're at 41 electronic parts. Regardless, 200 standard parts, just like that. Super duper easy. I am going to go ahead and get on to the next few locations. I'm just going to cover a couple more locations you can farm. I don't actually plan on showing any more locations. But yeah, alrighty. And for the last few locations, I'm just going to cover these real quickly. So, both Sunbury and technically Sunbury Middle School are great point of interest locations. If you're running them, just run Sunbury and the middle school together. One other thing I want to mention about mentioning these two is that you might even just want to run Sunbury, honestly, because while it's called Sunbury Middle School, there's very few loot in the middle school. You kind of got to run around everywhere in the middle school to actually get any loot out of it. As for Sunbury, it's mainly just going from house to house to house to house to house. Every single house is going to be loaded with loot. That's Sunbury for you. As for the other location, the only other locations I would be farming for standard parts, if you want to, has a really easy TP spot, is the Gaia Monolith Teleportation Tower. Just go directly here, the exclusion zone here, run all the way through the exclusion zone. Once you've looted the exclusion zone, you can hop on your vehicle and drive yourself all the way down to the Gaia Research Center ruins and loot it. Once you've looted those 2 spots, you've ran all of the good point of interest for standard parts. That is pretty much my methods for getting tons of standard parts. I do this as a one-man hive, so I run it across multiple accounts. And being that I run it across multiple accounts, the way I'll do it is usually I'll just run High Banks and the Dog Isles, on one account, swap to the next one, do it again, and also all of these point of interest are farmable every 4 hours. I do believe it's like synced with actual time, not 4 hours of you playing. Regardless, I'm out. See yas. Keep it beast mode.